You are now tuned in to The Gifted Gab.
We're back. Another episode of 1K Convos. We're back. Another episode of 1K Convos. I'm here with the boy Ace from 25th Hour.
What's up, man? How you doing?
Not bad, man. It's good to have you on. It's good to have you on, man. Long time overdue.
Yeah, for sure. We've talked about this for a little while, so it's good we're getting it done, bro.
Absolutely. 25th Hour.
Yeah.
You know, why?
Why 25th?
Yeah, where did the inspiration come from? Like, how to start a company is not, it's not an easy thing. You know,
Yeah.
you guys, I feel like you guys have positioned yourself as the creative boutique agency in Edmonton.
Nah, not yet. Not yet.
Yeah.
In all in good time. But well, the origin story was I was on my study abroad in the Netherlands, and while I was there, I just had a lot of time to myself, and honestly, just having a lot of time to myself gave me a chance to really figure out what I wanted and who I was as a person. And you sit with yourself a lot, and with that, you sit a lot with time. And so the concept of the 25th hour stemmed from my time there of just 25th hour is a play on the construction of time, because at the end of the day, it is a construction. It's a construct. And so 25th hour is us creating the 25th hour is a chance for us to take that back, because we're so consumed by time, like whether it be we're late for something, or I wish we had more time, or we're excited for this time in the future. But at the end of the day, like, it's a construct. So with 25th hour, it's a chance for people to take that back. I guess that's more of the subconscious branding, but if our work involves us creating branding, I just want to make sure our branding's tight, and a lot of people rock with it. So we've been good so far.
Was that a creation of like your own relationship with time? Like, were you know, because obviously you built it around this time thing, right? About time being a social construct. Is that a reflection of like your struggles with like your positioning with time and how you felt about timing and stuff like that?
Yeah, for sure. I think too often I get too carried away with just wanting a certain time to come, or just thinking about how times were in the past. And so even one of the core values we have is just mindfulness and just trying to be present. And so even for myself, like, it's just a chance for me to be like, okay, this is me being more present with my time and taking on things that I'm passionate about, and things that involve me being creative, and things that make me actually enjoy life and make me really here now, rather than 10 steps in the future or 10 steps in the past, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And like, you know, for those of you who don't know, Ace is from Edmonton, North Edmonton's finest.
North side forever, for real.
You know, we just saw Lebron shout out the North Side with that kid who
Yeah.
had the hoop and stuff like that, and you know, there's a real sense of community. So you know, you being from this community, you know, how do you see that it's grown? You know, what are some of the things you've seen that have transpired, and how did that kind of lead into 25th Hour?
Yeah, well, I've grown up here my whole life, aside from right now just living downtown. But my family immigrated here in the late 80s, and we've been here ever since. And the North Side has evolved, but at the same time, I think it's stayed the same, where it's a diverse group of people, and the people here are very, it's a different kind of person from the North Side opposed to being elsewhere. Like, I think growing up here, we definitely have like a chip on our shoulder, and also too, it's just like the fact that we come from so many different walks of life. Like, I grew up with like Sudanese homies, like Somali homies, like Vietnamese people, like everybody, and we all just went to the same schools, the same rec centers, and all that. And I think that gives us a great opportunity to have a broader perspective of life. And I think a lot of people don't get that chance. Like, honestly, I grew up like 2 blocks away from here. Like, I went to school, 2 blocks away from here for junior high, and then I went to the elementary school a block away from there. So like, it's nice to see where things have come, but I think I think the north side has a long way to go, and I think we have so much potential to give to the rest of the city, and honestly, like rest of the world. Like LeBron is seeing it, so I don't see why we can't keep growing that way.
So you being here, wait for it. Okay, so you being from Edmonton, okay. I'm sure you're aware that there's this negative stigma surrounding the city of Edmonton, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So like, what like the beef between Calgary and Edmonton and all that. You know, where does that stem from, and how do you see it being from Edmonton?
We're a blue collar city, right? And so a lot of people, like our makeup is of people who work in the trades or who work in more like service industries, because that's just who we are, and it just geographically it plays into like who we are. But things are changing now, but I think it affects like even the next generation. Like you're finding kids whose parents have always worked a certain type of lifestyle, or have had a certain type of lifestyle, or have always been like working the trains, have always been a taxi driver. And so I think it kind of gives this kind of sense of glass ceiling that's not there to a lot of people growing up. Whereas in like a place like Calgary or even Vancouver across the world, like you have a better understanding of what's possible because it's right in front of you. But I think here in Edmonton, we don't really get that chance, but it is possible. Like I think even myself, like I've been able to make a living off of creative projects, and like I'm very known, my work is very known for the basketball highlights I do, and I'm very aware of that. And so for myself, it's important because I understand that a lot of kids who were in my position 5-10 years ago are in that now, and when they see me doing something, they're like, oh wow, like Ace is kind of doing something like that. And like I don't think I'm where I want to be, but even where I am now is far from where I was before. So I just think the biggest difference is just that representation and just showing people that it's possible. And I think once we start getting that, I think more and more people will start to break the matrix and start to really understand that you can do whatever it is in this life. So
I love that, man.
Yeah.
'Cause it all starts with just seeing yourself, you know. For you, you know, you're from the Filipino community, and you guys love hoops.
Yeah.
But you know, it's not just hoops with you.
No.
You know, you're not just relegated only to basketball brands. You know, you're reaching companies from this side of the country to all the way to Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
And for not just a little Filipino kid, but for any kid that's from the north side, to see another kid from the north side reaching the masses through, you know, the back end, you know, you're setting an example. You know what I'm saying? You're seeing that, okay, you know, hey, here's this guy. He built something. And he's behind what you're seeing from all these other companies. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of power in that. And where do you think that inspiration came from?
The inspiration came from like my motivation towards doing this.
Mm-hmm.
I think just seeing where my family, what my family has had to do to put myself in a position to even just be in this country. I think a lot of people from the north side, or just even from Edmonton, understand that. Like my grandparents and my parents, they moved here, and it's not like they had a bad life where they were. It's just there was a certain glass ceiling, and moving here was a chance for their families moving forward to break that glass ceiling. And so they were never going to see the full what's the word, benefit of that. But like they were willing to sacrifice that. And so just knowing that like it's not just about me is really important, and just making the most out of the opportunities, and also just showing kids that it is possible, because I think there's two ways to empower someone. There's two ways to empower someone. Either you support them and you tell them you believe in them, or you show them what's possible. And for me, like I coached basketball for a while, and that was a big reason why. I was just giving kids that support. And so with my basketball stuff and what I do, it's and on the creative side is just showing people that it's possible to do this type of stuff. And luckily for myself, I've been able to travel, go on study abroads, and just be able to travel through my work. So I understand that there are people elsewhere who are just like me, breathe the same air, bleed the same blood, and they're doing exactly what I want to do. It's just we're just so caught up in knowing what we see, but we just got to know that it's possible. So those are definitely my two reasons. So just where my family's come from, and then also just being an example, I think is very important, because I'm not a person who was a kid in the north side. Like I still am a kid. Like I'm 23 years old, and so I still understand where a lot of these kids are coming from. So those are definitely my biggest reasons why, for sure.
Did you have an example?
Yeah, I've had so many, for sure. Like HEP, who was just on the show, was a big example for me. Like going to his camp for the first year, he was one of the first people to tell me that I could play in the ACAC. I ended up redshirting in the ACAC, but I would have never pursued that if someone like him didn't. Miss Barry, who was one of my junior high teachers, a lot of teachers, honestly, like Mr. Roselli, who taught me at Mac, Sonny Such, who's like an older like dude of mine, like he runs Good Hoops. So a lot of like older people in the community who just honestly just told me they believed in me was the biggest thing. And a lot of the time now looking back, I'm like, why would they even say that? Like I had nothing to give them. I had no proof that it was going to work, but I just think that extra push just kids need, like for sure. It's so crucial. Like it takes a village to raise a child, right? But we need to really solidify that village first before we start raising children. That's how I see it.
That village is community, right?
Yeah.
When there's a community behind you, I think that anything is possible. You know what I'm saying? And it could be, I think too many times we think community is just relegated to, you know, the area that we live in or the borders that confine us, but or even our ethnicity or culture. But community is much more than that. It's like, you think about, you know, you were pretty involved in the basketball community. You still are. But what brings all those people together? It's not basketball. It's that they're all after the similar goal. You know what I'm saying? There's so much community in that. And you want to go fast, you go alone. You want to go far, you go together. That's the motto. That's my favorite motto.
Oh, yeah.
Because, like, you know, like you said, you had a couple of examples and a couple of people that said, yo, you can do this. Just, you know, do this like this and go about it this way. Or, you know, you had examples and you had people pushing you. Those little things, looking back, you know what I'm saying? Like, looking back on, you know, our upbringings and some of the people we came across, you're like, damn, these people seen some things in me that I didn't see in myself till, like, you know, 5-6 years later.
Yeah, exactly. And so for myself, just like, if I have to go out of my way just to tell a kid that, like, hey, I believe in you, or hey, like, you can do this. I know, like, it takes very little out of me to do that. I know how much it might mean for a 16, 17-year-old kid who might be a little confused and a little lost in their life and not have much support. We just need to do better for our kids in our community, right? And there's, I think with COVID, I think there's been this huge gap, because a lot of kids have just been in their own little circles, whether it be just at home or just with their friends who look like them. I just think it's important for them to, like, know that there's so much more to life, and there are people there who are positive and people who are supportive and people who want them to do well. And it's unfortunate because I don't think there's enough of that, so.
Yeah, there isn't enough of that. There definitely isn't. You know, I think when we talk about Edmonton, it's a metropolitan. There's a million people here, but it still has a lot of, like, small city, small town vibes.
Yeah.
That small town vibe is community. You know, when cities scale and they get really big, that community aspect slowly deteriorates. And if Edmonton can maintain that community aspect, that feel, then all these people that we're coming across, all the kids that you talk to, all the kids that I talk to, all the people that watch this, all the people that see AGP, they see 25th Hour, they see the Gifted Gab, they see, you know, Jesse Lipscomb, they see, you know, Second Floor Podcast. All these kids that see this, they'll realize that, yo, I know that guy. They'll be like, yo, I know that guy. You know, I always see him at, you know, Legacy Athletics, or I always see him at, you know, LA Fitness or whatever, you know. So you make the degree separation
Exactly.
like much more feasible and much more smaller, and then it inspires people. It's like, yo, this guy did it. he's from the same place I'm from.
Exactly. That's what I've been trying to get across with my younger brothers. Is just like that it's all possible. Like you can do whatever you want in this life. You just have to work back. You just got to figure out your goal and work backwards from that and understand what it means to achieve that. Like I think what's worth having takes a lot of work, but it's doable. It's all doable. And if it's not, you just have to pivot and figure it out and go from there. I think it's so important because it's not necessarily about us figuring it out and us succeeding. I just think it's about us setting the example, so maybe the next person figures it out or the next person behind that figures it out. And luckily for myself and you, we both have time. We're still young, but if we can aspire that next person to figure it out, it only helps us because we're all from the same community. We're all from the same hood. So we all got to rise together for sure.
Yeah, we got to reach back and kind of bring, the next person up with us. I feel like, there can only be so many people that blaze trails, right? The trail is meant to be walked upon.
Exactly.
So when someone like you is blazing a trail, it's on you to like, okay, I've done my part and opened these doors and showed that this is possible. Next, I got to bring the next dude up with me.
Yeah.
The next guy that wants to be, wants to work in videography or wants to work in branding, wants to start his own business. We got to give that game out. We got to we can't hold on to that.
There's real responsibility when you're in a position of power. Like, I think that is legitimately, like, you have a responsibility. It's not, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. Like, when you are in a position of success, you're doing something well, you have to give it back to the next person, and that's how we all grow. And even myself, like, even with the content that I create and just the work I do, I make sure that it's intentional, even within the representation. Like, you look at my Instagram feed with the basketball mixtapes, which honestly are all just, that's a passion project. Like, that's not a main thing I do, and I think people get that twisted, but that's a passion project. And you look at the athletes that I feature, they're all black athletes, they're Arabic, they're women. I think just showing kids that that these types of people can be successful is important. Like, how many times do you see someone who's South Sudanese in a positive light? Like, we don't. But with my content, like, you see them doing good things, and at the end of the day, we're all just human. It's just the representation is so important. And so it's not even about me doing something well. It's about, like, showing that you can be black, or you can be Filipino, or you can be a woman and still be successful at stuff. And we don't get to see that, especially here in Western Canada. Like, honestly, we just don't.
Western Canada, I always say, every time when I first came out here, it was probably like 2011, and I used to say, damn, this place is like 15 years behind. Now in 2021, I'm still looking. I'm like, damn, this place is still 15 years behind. And I don't mean that in the technology or the culture. I don't mean that in, like, the technology or the culture. I mean that more so in who are the faces? You know what I'm saying? When I turn on the news, I don't see anybody that looks like me.
Yeah, it's honestly just in the mindset, because in reality, we view things here in Western Canada in a Western gaze. And I understand why. It's because that's where the money is, and that's where that's what the majority wants to see. So it's up to people like us to start to shift that narrative and show that there's a gap of people like us that need to be seen, and people want to see people like us in the media. But until that gap and until that push happens, nothing's going to happen. But I don't even think it's performative. Like, when people from marginalized backgrounds, they start to create content and show themselves on the news, they actually have a lot to provide, a lot to give. So we just got to keep breaking those doors. That's how I see it.
I still think that, Western Canada, Edmonton, Calgary, even Vancouver, like, we think of Vancouver as this big metropolitan. There's very little black representation there. I don't know about Filipino. I know there's a lot of Iranians and stuff there. And then I look at Calgary and Edmonton. Well, same thing. Me and you, we're very in with the basketball culture. But you remove that, you realize, there's nobody doing anything that looks like us.
Yeah.
And so representation is important, and that's that's where you step in with 25th
And
hour.
I think the key word is representation. Like there's actually a lot of people who look like us and think like us out there. It's just actually showing it to people. And that's what trips me out is that like people come up to me and they're like, yo, like I love what you do. And like for me, it's like I just do what I do because I enjoy it and it's my lifestyle. But I forget that it is such an anomaly and it shouldn't be that case. Like we should not be the anomaly. Like it should be very feasible for people to do this type of stuff, but it's still not there yet.
No, it's not there yet. We're getting there, man. And that's what 25th hour is here for. Representation is important, man. It's not just in seeing ourselves, but even in the brands, right? When we think about what makes Nike so powerful, when we think about music, television, it's like how are these brands represented and how are the people that use these brands, whether they're in commercials, whether in print, whatever it is, how are they represented? You know what I mean? And there's just so much power in seeing yourself. Like for you, seeing this Filipino guy from Northside Edmonton, starting his own brand, doing things his way, making all the mistakes.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like that. There's power in that. Talk about like, maybe some of the things you might have overlooked when you first started and.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's so many things like, but at the end of the day, that's just part of the process. Like how I say, whenever I make a quote mistake, it's just part of the game, right? So whether it's just something of like figuring out my processes and just making things more organized, or just having a better understanding of customer service, of just the customer interaction. There's so many things that I've overlooked, or even things that I'm learning. But how I see it is that I'd rather learn and grow at my own terms rather than doing something for someone else. And maybe that might sound a little selfish on my end, but at the end of the day, like I would rather lose on my terms and then I would rather win on my terms, if that makes sense. But honestly, just doing things my way is so important. And honestly, that's just how I've always been. And so I don't see me changing anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, you said something, you hit something really on the nose right there. Like, winning and losing on your own terms is a very overlooked thing. Like, I have no beef with 9-to-5s.
No.
I had some great money, great times. I worked for great companies. But the thing that drove me crazy was that, I was winning and losing at this job.
Yeah.
Whether I won or lost, I got paid the same.
Yeah, exactly.
And people think like, oh, there's like an anti 9-to-5.
No,
it's not that.
No.
It's some people who just want to be rewarded for the extra work that they
exactly.
put in,
Yeah. Like I'm not on some like Gary Vee type shit. Like, and I'm not on like anything like that. Like, it's just more so like living a lifestyle where I really get it how I live, if that makes sense. Like if I'm going to lose, I'm going to lose. If I'm going to win, I'm going to win. And just like, there's nothing wrong with 9-to-5. Like, I'm not opposed to that at all. I'm just at an age for my own self. And I'm just at a point in my life where I can take a risk and I'm able to take a leap of faith. And honestly, if the stuff doesn't go well, it's fine. Like, I'm about to graduate with my university degree in 4 months. And so even for myself, like, yeah, I started my own business, but I also have the safety net of a degree and I'm educated. And so like, it is good to take risks and to put yourself in positions to succeed, but you have to be smart about it and really do everything. Like, you don't have to pick that entrepreneur type lifestyle, and you don't have to pick just school. Like, I'm an example. Like, you can do it all. Like, it's not easy, and honestly, like, there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that go into what I do, but I'm living on my own terms, and so that's all that matters to me.
Hey man, 25th hour.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not only 24. Sometimes we gotta stretch it as much as possible. Talk about the branding side of things.
Yeah.
Not just your own branding, but the importance of it in business. I think when we're starting small businesses or ventures, you know, I love branding.
Yeah,
Branding is
it's
like
fun.
it's fun. It's like you're choosing your identity in a sense.
Exactly.
You get to choose the colors that represent
Yeah.
you, the font type that you want, the feel you want to
Yeah.
encompass. You know, there's a lot of psychology that goes into branding. You know, what made you like that so much? Like, what made you want to follow that as opposed to like, okay, let's just stick with videography and film production.
Well, yeah. So initially, I was just in videography. Actually, before that, I was in journalism, and then it's kind of pivoted where I have a full professional communications degree. And while I was in the Netherlands, I took a film production course. But what drew me towards branding was just how it's so encompassing, and how it just takes in so much. And how I see branding is that branding is just uncovering what's already there and just making narrative of that and just uncovering your story. Because in reality, whether you consciously choose to make a brand or not, everyone has a brand, especially with social media and us having all these platforms. Like, whether you like it or not, you have a personal brand, or what you have has a brand. And so if that's the case, you might as well put real attention to detail and put real input into making your brand something that you're proud of. And so some people might think, like, how does this directly affect my sales or directly affect my margins? And it does, because your brand really gives a representation, a first impression of who you are and what your company stands for and where your values are. So you might as well invest in that and figure out what's best for yourself and for your organization.
I think, like you said, first impression, especially in like this digital age, technology, where a lot of the brands you stumble upon is through your phone, right? So what is the first thing you might see? Maybe an Instagram page, website, a logo. You know what I'm saying? Like, when we think about some of the strongest brands, like, you couldn't pay me to switch from Apple to Samsung.
Yeah.
That has nothing to do with, like, the Samsung phone is probably a better phone than an iPhone.
But you wouldn't even know that because you haven't even looked into it.
I haven't even looked into it. But, like, the branding that Apple brings, maybe they got me. Like, they got me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
They have us all.
They have us all. But it's not about the feasibility. It's not about the technology. It's like, when you see that Apple, people are like, you know what? I know what I'm getting.
Yeah.
From that company.
Yeah. Well, I think brand is important. Another reason why brand is important is because at the end of the day, we all just want to feel a sense of belonging and a sense of understanding. And I think true. Brand really gives that. For like example, like this hoodie I'm wearing, it's a 20th Hour Nike hoodie, and I did that on purpose because Nike is such a strong brand. 20th Hour is like whatever, but if we're able to build that brand association between Nike and 25th Hour, that is huge for me, and it really puts my team and our brand at a premium. So
that's the word right there.
Yeah, a premium. Yeah, and something like brand is a premium. But if you're very serious about what your work and what you do in your organizations, it's something that you will look into, especially now. Like, it's just where we're headed. Like, you can no longer be a fencing company and just operate by like just calling people. Like, you need a real brand, you need a website, you need a logo, you need colors, you need everything. And it's just the way we're going, and you might as well just hop on it before it's too late. Yeah,
that's probably my funnest part. The funnest part for me about building a company, a brand, whatever, is that process of like, what do you want people to know your brand for? You kind of decide that with the colors you choose, with what's the first thing they see when they stumble on your website, and like, when you think about even like personal brands, you know what I'm saying, like, that's one thing I've struggled with it, you know what I'm saying, how do I brand myself if I like to do everything? So it's like, it's something that, it seems like a very superficial thing, because you're thinking about what do people perceive when they see you or see your brand. But when you understand how the brain works and how people make decisions on things, and how they make purchasing decisions and how they make investment decisions, they want to feel secure about the people behind this logo.
I think another beautiful thing behind brand is that it's just uncovering what's already there. So a big thing that we do with our work is whenever we do a brand project, we send our the client a questionnaire, and they're very general questions. And because brand is just uncovering where your values are at and who you are, and so it's not making up anything new. It's just really bringing who you are to the forefront and to the surface so that everyone can see it. Because yeah, you might have an idea of who you are and what you guys stand for, but unless people can actually see it and understand, people can see it, they won't understand it. And that's why it's so important. That's why every single time someone I know says they've seen 25th Hour, I always ask them like, oh, what do you think about it? Like, what's your first impression of it? Because that first 5 seconds of what people think is so important, and that's really what I aim for when I'm building this brand. It's like, what are people going to think within the first 5 seconds of interacting with 25th Hour?
Mm-hmm. It's a serious question.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because the answer you get from that will show you if your company is in the right direction or not. And like I said at the beginning, oftentimes companies don't want to pay for branding. They don't want to invest in their image. They don't want to invest in, what is this thing that represents you? We bring it right back to representation. It's like your brand represents you. You know what I'm saying? That check on the hoodie for Nike, it's probably one of the most symbolic. When you see that check, you're like, everybody knows they don't even put Nike on there anymore. It's just a check.
Exactly. Well, I'll ask you like, what's your impression of 25th Hour when you think of it? Like, what are your thoughts?
The first thing I think of 25th Hour is I think about bridging a gap.
Yeah.
That's like when you go through like the image, when you look at the logo, you get a vintage feel from it. But then when you go and you look on your website and you look at your work, it's futuristic. So it's like you're bridging old and new. That's what I think of when I think
that's
of 25th
awesome.
Hour. And I love that because I think right now as millennials and Gen Zers, we do bridge a lot of things.
Oh, yeah.
We bridge the boomers. We bridge technology and tradition. We bridge, culture and individuality. You know what I mean? We've been bridging, music and lifestyle, sports, hip hop. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we've been bridging things
For sure.
for so long. So when I first saw 25th Hour, my first impression is, here's a bridge, another bridge.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? What is your impression when you see the Gifted Gap?
Gifted Gap?
Yeah.
Well, I think of just like real conversation and just people like within like these communities that otherwise would go unheard of. And I think of just, how do I say this? Like conversations from people from communities that are on the rise. So like, for example, like the Black community here in Canada, I think has like made a lot of like progress and representation, but we still have a lot of work to be done, or even just people who are Filipino Canadian. So just people who are unrepresented, just given a chance to speak and just talk their shit, which is so important. It's literally the word of the day, representation. So
it's important, man. Representation is important, and I think the next most important word is dialogue. You know what I'm saying? Like, one thing about branding, once somebody gets past the brand and they want to move to the next step, guess what? It's a conversation now.
Exactly. That's why I'm here.
That's exactly why you're here, right? So it's like, by putting the brand out there and summoning this feeling of whatever, 25th Hour, creative boutique agency, okay, maybe they can help me with my branding.
Exactly.
Now they're going to reach out, and now you have this transaction and a chance to build a relationship that can be beneficial to both parties, right? And that's everything. But that all started with the representation of how your brand looked.
Exactly.
The feelings it summoned. And it's like, I don't know, maybe, I think right now we're going through a sort of like an enlightenment period. Like there was the Enlightenment period and like,
understood, yeah.
And then the Renaissance and stuff like that. I think right now we're going through a technological enlightenment, whereas before there was too much information. Now we're like, okay, we're figuring out where to find the information that is useful to us. You know what I'm saying? No matter what happens, no matter what transpires, there's always going to be, trees, water, nature, all these things that are resources. One of those resources is information. It's never gonna go anywhere, you know. And I think right now we're seeing that, okay, if Ace wants to start his own company, he has all the means at his disposal to do that.
Yeah.
You know, same way if you wanted to build a house, you just had to find some lumber, find some brick. Well, now, no, you got to buy some land first. But the resources are at our disposal to do these things.
Yeah.
So with information, it's the same thing.
Exactly.
Tomorrow, if someone's you can't come to me and have a conversation about, yeah, I've wanted to do this thing. My answers are going to be, why haven't you?
That's bullshit.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, why haven't you? Because what's stopping you?
There's literally nothing stopping you. Like, we live in 2021. There's information everywhere. Like 20 years ago, or even 15 years ago, like, people had to go to the library, which that sounds so foreign, but like, like honest, and like now, like you want to Google something, you don't have to type it up. You just have to like talk to Siri.
Yeah.
You know, and like I think that's so beautiful, like in the sense that one of my tattoos is actually the concept is knowledge is power. Mm-hmm. And actually that's something that my great grandpa would tell to my dad when he was growing up, was that like you should fill up your brain with as much knowledge and read as many books as you can, because people can take your cars, your houses, everything you own, but they can never take the knowledge that gets put into your brain or into your head. So I don't take that for granted. And now that everything is so accessible, like, why not read everything about anything? And
absolutely, it's I always say, like, real wealth is up here.
Oh yeah.
Right? It's like being broke is temporary.
Yeah.
Because if you're actually wealthy in the mind, you can create wealth anywhere.
Yeah, and that's kind of the reason why I am doing what I'm doing. It's not to pursue necessarily material wealth, but just wealth of the mind and just wealth of time. And I think that's something that we often we don't look at as younger people, but as you get older, you start to realize that, like, wealth is just about freedom, and it's just about doing what you want. And with the 25th hour, it's allowed me to have a platform to just do what I want and do things on my own term. And you know what, like, it is profitable and it is a business, but it's a platform for me to just be happy and just have wealth and wealth in all these different aspects. So
what's next for 25th hour? What's next for Ace?
What's next? Well, I graduate school at the end of the semester, so that's probably gonna be, like, honestly my biggest accomplishment to this day. I'm pretty proud. Like, none of my family, I'm gonna be the first male in my family to have a degree. Like, my parents don't have degrees, my grandparents don't have degrees. Like,
it's a great feeling.
Yeah, I'm like, my grandparents, I don't even think they have high school diplomas.
Yeah,
like, and that's all good because they put me in a position where I can do that, and so I don't take that for granted. And it's something I've been trying to relay to my brothers and my cousins, like, yo, like, our families, like, put us here to succeed, and we don't have to do anything extravagant, but we just have to go to school, get our degrees, do what we have to do. And we get caught up because we've grown up here in Edmonton, so we don't understand that, like, if we were born 30 years ago, we would be in, like, a rice field. And that's real as hell.
Yeah.
And so my next step is, like, getting my degree, and then hopefully at some point get my master's in something. We'll see. And then I would love to keep growing the 25th hour, take on bigger projects, do more community initiatives, expand more past Edmonton. Like, currently we have clients in Victoria, San Francisco, Nova Scotia, Calgary, but I would love to do work in Europe. My long-term goal is hopefully to live out there.
Yeah, it'd be nice.
Because it's a beautiful lifestyle, and honestly, me spending time there in 2019 made me realize that there's more to life than just the north side. So it's we'll see where it takes me, but I'm just trying to enjoy myself and load up the bases and put people that I know, people I love and care about, in positions to succeed. So yeah, I don't take anything for granted, but that's kind of where I'm at.
That's it, man. You guys heard it here first, man. 25th hour, Ace. If you need some branding tips, you know where to go.
Yeah. I guess my last thing is, like, for real, if you're a kid in the community and you need help, like, just figuring out, like, if you want to start your own business, or you need help with videography or anything like that, or you need a basketball program or whatever, just my Instagram will be here, and like you guys can always contact me. Like I'm all for the community, and I just want to help everybody who's involved in our city, because that's the only way we bring each other up, and we just got to keep growing together. Otherwise, like, we're nothing, right? So like there's more to life than just what we see and like in our communities. And I know like being a teenager is tough and all that stuff, but like everything and anything is possible. Like I truly believe that. I literally have the world is yours like tattooed on my leg. And I believe that. Like I truly believe that. It's just a matter of just people seeing that and being empowered and someone believing in them. And that can be me. If you need that to be me, just hit me up and we can chop it up. So
Hell yeah.
yeah.
Ace, 25th hour, the gifted gab. You guys already know what it is. 1K Convos. Just like that.
Oh, yeah.
We gone.